KTN News. Get the whole story.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Prime. We continue with the broadcast, and this segment we want to talk about matters youth. And ever so often we hear of the fact that they're the majority in the country, yet at times within the political space they seem to be taken for a ride. Are they claiming their space? Are they being cut out? And what developments are happening, especially since we're barely 7 months to the general election? We want to interrogate rather the space for youth in political spaces, the political parties right here in the country. I have a youthful panel joining me in studio. I'll start with the gentleman right opposite me, Kariuki Ngunjiri, political analyst. It's always great to have you with us. Thank you for your time. I'm equally joined by Ruth Ambogo, who's a youth policy analyst. Thank you so much for your time and good morning.
Good morning.
Well, and as well as Philip Mwangale, who is a lawyer and leadership and governance consultant. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's good to see my youthful generation taking matters politics closely to their hearts. So I'd like to begin with the lady in the group. Ruth Ambogo, your take on the space for youth in political parties and the political field as it is. Have we made progress even in terms of raising awareness when it comes to our space? What say you?
Well, I think I'd like to say that we've made a lot of progress in terms of the youth involvement and youth participation in political parties at all levels, because you see participation in political parties depends on different levels. There are levels, there's the participation at the leadership level, top leadership level, where you find most political parties, as we speak today, have secretary generals who are young. Some of them are youthful, some of them are actually youth below the age of 35. Some political parties have entrenched young people, young women within their women leagues. You have youth leadership. You have youth leagues that have been created all over that are full of young people. So for me, the participation, I would like to appraise the participation of youth in political parties, mostly at the leadership level, at the top leadership space, where you have young people being infused into the same spaces as the older generation. So in most youth leagues, I'd like to give an example of ODM, of which I'm a member. You'd find that we have quite a number of young people being involved within the top leadership space of within the political parties. If you look at some of the, for instance, Azimio La Umojas that have taken place recently, you've seen a lot of faces of young people coming up, speaking, you know, and articulating issues of young people. So I think to that extent, for me, I would speak very confidently on the ODM side of things. I see young people being involved in the Women League. Even, I mean, presently, I know there's a new league, there's a new space that has been created for young women within the political space called Young Captains in ODM that is now targeting young women from the university level, where we are saying that we are not waiting for you to finish campus to begin getting involved in politics, but at the level of campus, can you get involved in national politics? And they are being given the center stage. So other political parties I can also talk about, for instance, ANC. I'm seeing a number of faces. Some of my friends who are young as I am, are taking over leadership spaces within, you know, ANC. I see even KANU has quite a space that has involved young people. So in terms of how the progress that we have made from the years back, there's a lot to speak about, and there's a lot to congratulate the youth for. But I believe that there's still more that young people can do. We can still have more young people involved in the spaces that we are talking about within the critical decision-making spaces in the political parties, because our failure to be involved in these critical decision-making spaces in the political parties is what leads to young people being sidelined when it comes to, for instance, nominations. You find a lot of them being at the nomination stages, some of them being denied their certificates because they don't have people to fight for them. So we are hoping that in the coming 2020, in this election that is coming up, we will see young people rightfully getting their certificates, because there is now representation, because without representation, your issues are not articulated.
Well, that definitely makes sense. So we've come a long way, according to you. Let me cross over to Kariuki Ngunjiri just briefly, and still talking about youth inclusion and participation in the political parties. Interestingly, I was looking at the statistics from Parliament, and young people make up only 6.5% of the country's parliament. And begs the question, what exactly is keeping young people from politics, and how can we break down these walls? What is the issue according to you, Kariuki?
Thank you so much, Jesse. I'm happy to see that you have transitioned into some fantastic studios since I was here.
It's been a while.
Number two, I want to first argue based on what is rather the factors that influence how young people decide to participate or not participate in the affairs of their country. One, research has shown us that there are various levels of social classes which the young people will find themselves in. Either you are rich, you are in the middle class, or you are poor.
Okay.
Most of the time, you find that those that are poor are the ones who sometimes have felt that the government of the day at all times has not given them the opportunity that they need to have in order to create wealth and have a livelihood that is meaningful for themselves.
Okay.
Number two, those that are in the middle class, those who drive cars around here, those who work in banks, people like Jesse who come in the morning wearing a tie.
I'm in the middle class, yeah?
Yeah, of course. And those who can afford to take tea at Java. Those ones believe that things can be done better, and that if those in leadership and those in political positions can improve on how they do their job, then there is a guarantee for a future. And then there are those who have been privileged either by hard work or by the fact that they were born in families that have developed and who have the financial capacity to do whatever they wish to do. Those ones do not see the need for any shift. They want status quo. They are the conservatives.
Okay.
And then the other second factor in Kenya here is ethnicity. For example, someone who comes from a region that has not produced certain people, either leaders in business or in political leadership or even in church leadership, do not find role models and examples that they can be able to follow and say, so and so has made it in life, and so I am motivated to work hard and become like them. Number three, it could be as a result of education. It is in our country here that we are saying only, I think, up to 2% would probably be having over higher education, and which is a very sad state of affairs.
Okay.
Because what will an uneducated person do in a context that is sophisticated in the nature of politics? And so when we reduce this conversation into the fourth factor, which is interest, the young people sometimes have a certain interest dear to their heart. Most of them would rather participate in watching an F1 race or paying a trip to go to Dubai and enjoy the marina, as opposed to them, for example, investing that money in getting, for example, a leadership course, or participating in the affairs of a political party, either through volunteering and vying for a position. So which means if the youth have no interest in these issues, then it is difficult. Coming to your question as I finish, I want to say that over the past few years, we have seen a transition of the thinking of the young people in Kenya. That now, at least, we can see people believing in young people who have, for example, been in the music industry. We have seen young people believing in those who have been in university leadership, college leadership, which means that we cannot beat ourselves hard at the moment, and gradually, and as times change, so do circumstances and the factors that influence the choices that the young people make at the ballot shift.
Okay, well, and that's really proper. And since you brought up some of the members of parliament, and they've been picked up from different backgrounds. We had a former musician who made it to become member of parliament, a former student leader in the likes of Babu Owino. I don't know, what's your take on that, Philip Mwangale? As you give us your take, that issue of the youth feeling disenfranchised, and we had it especially during the voter registration en masse by IEBC. Very few, or perhaps some, didn't turn up to register as voters, yet they're the majority in the country. Would you attribute this to perhaps poor leadership from the youth who actually made it to positions of power, or what exactly would you attribute to the feeling of disenfranchisement, if it is there?
Thank you. My point of departure would be what my brother Ngunjiri has mentioned, that we have seen a shift in the last couple of years, and that is with regard to the number of youthful people who have been elected into parliament, and he has specifically mentioned a certain category of people. And my issue is with the caliber of young people that get elected. And I will give a soft rebuke to my fellow youth out there, that among the many qualities of leadership, being youthful is not one of them. You have to have something additional to your age. And I think when we focus on the issue of age and forget substance, then we will, perhaps have 90% of young people in parliament who have no substance. And I would go as far as saying that a majority of the young people, or I would go, let me use the word youthful, because most of them have exited the bracket of that constitutional definition of youth. True. A majority of those people are not people who can actually speak for the youth of this country, because you can just guess by the representation of this panel that we have youth in this country who are serious about the welfare of this nation, the health of this country, but you have a majority of us, and unfortunately that is a number that presents themselves up for election, who are not people of substance. So we must go beyond the age definition in my view. Okay. Number two, and in line with what you've asked, that feeling of disenfranchisement is contributed to by so many things. One of them is the fact that we have had leadership gaps in the last few decades. We've had people who've gotten into office, promised to do certain things, even for the youth themselves, and those things were not done. So you have a growing apathy that we have been experiencing over the years. When you talk about youth registering to vote, I mean, voting in itself is a duty that should be taken with much delight for the young people, because we are setting an agenda, not just for this generation, but for the generations to come. So when we have a large number of young people choosing to distance themselves from engaging in governance, because we do not just engage in governance at the level of top-tier decision making, we engage at first at the ballot stage. Okay. So if we miss out on that stage, then we cannot claim any other position at top-tier leadership. And number two, and I will disagree with Ruth on this about youth engagement in decision making. Though I agree with her that we need youth to be engaged in critical decision making. For me, it's not a question of presence, because we will have more youth being present in these spaces, in these political spaces, in the political parties, in nominations and appointments, because in any case, the number of youth is increasing. But for me, any youthful engagement that stops at employment is meaningless. Any youthful engagement that stops at a plum job or plum positioning, whether it is in a political party, whether it is in government organs, that engagement is misplaced. Youthful engagement that is meaningful is youthful engagement that is present at the critical decision-making stage at any level of government. And for me, it would be important that youth are engaged not just at the national level, but even at the county level. We have youth clamoring to get into these positions at the national level, yet we are leaving so many gaps at county level.
Okay.
And these levels of government, were given to us so that we could engage at those specific and meaningful levels.
Well, that's definitely noted. Ruth, as you perhaps reply to what Philip has just mentioned, I mean, the leaders we choose are a reflection of what we stand for as a society at the end of the day. So when we sort of poke holes at the quality of leadership, you know that as saying when you point a finger for pointing back at you, it sort of stops with us, the society, and who exactly we choose to represent us, perhaps if we find them wanting. And that also brings in the aspect of women in leadership as well. If we look down on women, especially in the society level, then when it comes to national politics, that will be a challenge. What's your take on the progress we've made, especially in expanding the bracket, bringing in women in leadership? And we've seen some take hold of party roles, including the likes of Veronica Maina from UDA side, the governors, Charity Ngilu and the likes. But what say you?
Well, first we must appreciate the fact that we have seen an increase in the number of women that are getting elected over the years. There has been a significant increase in not just the number of women that get elected, but also the number of women that vie for elective seats. And that, in fact, is evident this year. That this year, whenever you look across your social media platforms, you will find a serious number of women vying for very serious positions. And what I'm happy about this time round is that not only are they vying for elective positions, but they are seeking to battle it out with men, meaning that no longer are we seeing women, pushing themselves mostly towards the women rep positions or waiting to be nominated, but women are now gathering the confidence and the courage to say that I will battle it out even for the positions that, especially for the positions that have since been male dominated. In most of the counties right now, women are vying for Senate seats. Nairobi alone, you can see quite a number of women out there. Karen Nyamu, you can see women battling it out. Basically across the country, women are battling it out for serious positions. The gubernatorial race, Kirinyaga is just an example of what women are now doing and the courage that women have taken to step out and say that even for the gubernatorial seat that has been mostly in some of the counties has been traditionally been reserved for men, even culturally speaking, we are seeing women battling it out and saying that, you know what, we are coming out, we are presenting ourselves, and we are going to battle it out for positions that are traditionally reserved for men. So I think we must appreciate the efforts, and the efforts must also be attributed to the legal provisions that have been put in place, the constitutional changes that we made in 2010 that allowed for women to be nominated for some of these positions, especially the Senate and even the National Assembly. So because what happens is that you've seen the number of women some of the women who got nominated in 2013 ended up gathering the confidence, the courage, the resources to be able to vie in 2017 and ended up getting elected. So we must appreciate the role that these provisions for gender parity has played in ensuring that women actually get elected. Because some of the challenges that women have faced in the past include, for instance, the perception that women cannot be able to lead at critical decision-making positions, that they cannot lead as members of parliament, that they cannot lead as senators, that they cannot lead as governors. Yeah. That traditional perception. So once you nominate, for instance, a woman senator, then you give her the chance to display to the society that she can also lead. And in fact, in some of the counties and even constituencies where women have been elected as MPs and governors, such counties are actually doing much better than counties that are being led by men. So then the perception is now being turned around that people can begin to see that women leadership is actually a leadership that can bring about change. Look at Makueni County, where Charity Ngilu comes from. Look at what she's doing. She's come up with a lot of processing plants for local farmers. She's doing a lot of things that most county governments are not doing. I would like to, much as there's some controversy around her, the governor for Kirinyaga County, look at what she's been able to do for Kirinyaga. And as compared to some counties where men are leading, but there's nothing much that is going on. So the perceptions are now changing. And then also when you nominate these women, you give them the ability to be able to amass a certain amount of money so that, I mean, I'm not talking about money in the literal sense, but they can be able to gather the resources to run in the next election. So we must also appreciate the role that the laws have played, and how I wished that the provisions that had been put in place in the BBI and some of these provisions that were coming up would have passed, because that would mean that would give more women opportunities to lead, would give more women opportunities to be represented, as Mwangale says, at critical decision-making stages.
Definitely, because we have to look at the value when it comes to decision-making as well. So we've made steps, according to Ruth Ambogol right there. Allow us to take a short break. When we come back, there's that key issue when it comes to finances that seems to hamper those who have ambitions to vie for political seats, especially the youth, from actualizing these dreams. We take that short break. We'll be back with the youthful conversation. Stay with us.